Jonas. In this week's episode, Andrew Robson and I sit down and talk about bonsai evaluation. As part of the run-up for the Pacific Bonsai Exposition in fall of 2022, Andrew and I have been having a number of conversations about how this might work. In this completely unscripted conversation, we talk about the pros and cons of some of the different approaches. The conversation kicks off with the description of 5 alternative criteria for evaluating bonsai. So one would be transition of taper. One would be either foliage and or twigginess. One of them could be age. One of them
like age a lot.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. One of them could be special characteristics. Like, is there something that just really, some punch that the tree has that's really cool? Mm-hmm. It could be a deadwood feature.
What if you just had your like typical classical black pine, super tapered? What would that tree essentially just score like a 0 in that, or 1 in that category then?
So
for a unique feature, if it's a very
bark,
for lack of better.
Bark could be the most important thing for pine. So if the pine has no bark, it could be a perfect tree, but all we care about is bark. Juniper, twisting movement.
Okay.
Deciduous, we need twigginess and we need no scars.
So a special feature is conducive to that particular
species.
Plant. Okay.
And then I kind of want a demerit category almost that subs it out just to be cheeky and just say, hey, I have a flaw category. Same point thing, but it subtracts.
Ew, interesting.
Just to mess with the process.
You know what we should do sometime is we should just like look through a show book and actually do this type of scoring and see how like the results would yield, because you could easily practice this.
These are all reproducible kind of things.
Yeah.
So when I teach people picking the trunk, there's always 5 things you evaluate, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like there's the line of the trunk, the branch position, the roots, any special features you want to show off, or any flaws you want to hide. So there's just very naturally 5 things when picking the front of a tree. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty good self-contained way to do it. What's so fun is that it's super hard because you're not saying which one wins over the other. It's actually a fairly complicated relationship among those elements.
Yeah. That's tricky. Interesting.
Yeah. And so they're good teaching things. And then what's hard is what happens over time is that reflection or calculation that people internalize as they go and learn how to, well, the branches are horrible from this front, but the trunk line's great and the roots are so, but there's a scar right there. And so it's like, there's still a gestalt, an overall feeling.
But then you have like the case, like maybe it's a Korean hornbeam that's 80 years old and that's a really beautiful scar and it becomes a feature, and it becomes tricky. But it's a good teaching tool because it teaches people, hey, it's not just, is this a good tree or a bad tree? It's what qualities of this trunk might make it attractive or not attractive.
And that's what was so great about the whole BIB judging thing, is it was one of the first times we got out of the zone of what tree do you like and into the zone of how good could the branches be? What would I expect for this? And that gets people to think.
That show was judged by the members, right? By the membership. And how often would you say that, because essentially that's a popularity contest to some degree. I mean, whenever it's a democratic vote like that. So if you could put a percentage on how accurate they were, like, do you think the best tree won most of the time?
Definitely. Yeah. The best tree won 80 to 90% of the time.
And do you think that percentage is the same when we just pick 3 random professionals to come judge a show?
So similar things come up. When you pick a professional to judge a show, there are going to be biases, and we've all seen that in shows where it can happen that trees that, in a case where there's multiple good options for a winner, that it might fit into that person's sweet spot, or they might be more likely to opt to go with something in that sweet spot, whether it's collective material for someone, super traditional conservative styling for someone else, a boxwood because they love boxwood.
Yeah.
But so we did this very carefully. In the early BIB days, everyone judged every tree in the show, And that just got untenable after a while because we were asking for 5 scores per tree for every tree in the show. And that took forever.
Yeah.
Then we went to the top 3 trees in each category and we got 5 scores per tree. And it actually helped a lot to
And
break it down that way.
would Boone pick the trees?
Yes.
So he'd select the
I
5
often
trees in each category.
3 trees in each category.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I would actually do the rough cut. And then I'd say, okay, Boone, I was thinking this.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd say, yeah, that's right. Or, oh, what about that? And we'd say, oh yeah. Do we need to do 2? Do we need to do 4? Something like that.
So it might be changeable depending on what good options you have.
It was almost always 3, but we were slightly fuzzy with that. There were a couple times for sure when we had 4 trees out there.
Yeah.
Now, why did we not always think the best tree won? Every once in a while, there was a tree that was absolutely stunning because of some special reason, but it may not have been a bonsai. And one example that comes to mind is there was a crabapple covered with fruit. It was glorious. Everyone that walked in the room loved that tree. It won.
Yeah.
I would pay more for the second place tree because it was a better tree. But it didn't win. It didn't get all the votes from people because it didn't have fruit on it. It wasn't this beautiful, seasonal, wonderful showpiece.
It had this like umami, right? This like hard to nail down.
That's right.
Flamboyance or something. Yeah.
But I tallied the scores most years for 19 years. And in general, we thought the judging system produced a good winner.
So I mean, that's interesting because I think that is a lot higher percentage than what you see when there's just 3 to 5 judges who come in, right? That seems to make sense.
Yeah, there was always a couple, like someone always walked around groaning a little bit, but that's every time you judge.
Right. That's just the nature of bonsai shows where there's a prize.
Yeah, and so I'd love to try our alternative judging rubric and see if it produces more or less accurate results, because those are much more subtle kind of points. But what's interesting is in both cases, even if it's a simple root, branch, trunk, special, pot, or your categories, you still have to know what is possible for that species. And that's the part that's really hard for people to grok if they're new to a species.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you've never grown Chinese quince, then getting very, very fine twigging on a Chinese quince is probably something you might miss.
Or getting any bifurcation at all, for instance.
Yeah. Same with ume or something like that. Yeah,
if you've got an ume that has flowers evenly all over the thing and it's twiggy, it's like, wow, how did you do that? You don't hesitate to ask those people how they do it.
Yeah, then you almost need like that. I guess you said that category would be special things for that species. Is that?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Like a uniqueness category, like
special
how exceptional
features.
Is this?
That's right. Is there something about it that puts it above and beyond? And there's different ways to think of the category. It could be that your par score for that category is 0 instead of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that you just add points or accrue points as these special features get really, really good.
It's interesting because we're almost judging, like, I think a lot about how bonsai judging is very similar to like a dog show or something like that, where, I mean, the analogy there is right that, you're judging a golden retriever based on what a golden retriever should look like, rather than, is this golden retriever better than the Boston Terrier?
Right.
And so you're judging them against their own standard. But when you do that, you're looking for some type of uniformity, saying, is this snout like the perfect shape? Is this the perfect shape? Not like, oh, this snout is very, very difficult to create. And so you're kind of judging opposite.
There are, as Ryan broke it down in the Artisan's Cup rubric, there were technical and aesthetic considerations, and that's a nice way to split it, because you're right, you're not technically creating those things on the dog, but you are recognizing them. And what you're doing is you're assuming there's a shared understanding and idealized cognitive model of the characteristics that are appropriate to a given species, and that's the part that requires the most practice, understanding, and depth of vision to know, is this, like, what are the best branches we can put on a privet of all the privets in the world. And that gets into the fun question of based on US standards or based on Japanese standards. And that question came up a lot, actually, because having been to Japanese shows, a bunch of them, and having been to a lot of US shows, I would often score US shows by US standards. And people would say, yeah, that trunk's kind of funky. It's kind of this. And so I'm only going to give it a 6 out of 10. And I'd say, I've never seen one of those have a better trunk in the US. I'm going to give it an 8.
I think you need a context.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about judging.
And that's what's tough is if you only know that your club's trees, it's going to radically affect what scores you give.
Right.
Because the rest is just internet pictures or show books.
Yeah. And so your context has to change based on where you are, which I guess is what context is.
And that's where we get into weighted scores, which we'll be doing. And so whether we go with a small number of scores or a small number, 1 to 7, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, or a big number, 1 to 40 or 60, we want to weight them so that everyone's scores end up being equal. So like if one person gives all 4s and one person gives all 2s, we let them all balance each other out.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
is that the Z scoring that Dan Yemens had talked about?
Oh, I don't remember what that referred to, but it is in his paper.
Okay.
And I will definitely reach out to Dan when it's time to figure out our score. Hey, here's what we've come up with. What did we do wrong? Yeah,
Dan's an amazing guy. Yeah, it's so interesting. Do you think people would attend a show that didn't have prizes or wasn't judged? Well, like if you just have like a jury and then like that's it,
then exhibit. Okay. I think just as many people would attend. I think a large number of people would be disappointed or confused.
And do you think putting a prize or putting prize categories, do you think that encourages better trees to attend?
In some cases, definitely. I think you'd lose some trees. Some people don't like the competition. Other people will tell you they hate competition, but they, quote, can't help it. And they're going to bring their A game. And I know that even in the BIB club, the prizes definitely made a difference. We all called them hockey pucks because they were these little,
like clear
plastic,
disc
clear
things,
disc things. You got it. And so everyone wanted more hockey pucks.
Crazy.
Yeah, because like in a video game, the goal of a video game is to make the number in the corner bigger.
And were the hockey pucks like? Did that come with like a monetary prize as well, or was it
never?
It was just the. It was just the prestige.
It really was, and we had a lot of categories, and that was another good educational thing. As we had best large, we had size categories as well as species categories. So the two broad groups were conifer or deciduous and broadleaf evergreen lumped together, and shohin. And then among the two main categories, we had large, medium, and small.
Okay.
As long as we had enough trees to judge in a category, we'd offer a prize for that category. So kind of like the Taikon 10 model, but not as exhaustive in the number of categories.
Yeah. I get really overwhelmed with too many categories. Especially when you're like sitting at whatever show you're at and there's the awards banquet and it's like, here's the best this, here's the best this. And it's just like 30 prizes later. You're like, oh, when's food coming out?
So I have mixed feelings about that. It reminds me the first time I went to kind of a commercial wine tasting, I thought I saw the sheet and it was, I forget, 80 or 100 different wines. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to keep that many. I didn't know what I was doing. How am I going to keep all that straight? But you only have 4 Pinots from this valley and you have 3 of these from that. And so by the time you get to the grape in the region and you break it down, it actually became very manageable because you're not balancing in your head more than 5 different things at a time. Usually it was fewer than that. And it's the same way when you go to Taikon 10, there are a million categories, but during the judging, they take out the top 3 in every category and they line them all up down the center aisle. When you see 3 root over rock, it's like, great, they have a weird category. It's like root over rock or bunjin, or like they have a few really different kinds of things all in their odds and ends category. But by the time you do the sizes and you see them right there, it's not bad at all. Walking through the show, it just seems ridiculous. Like, wow, there's a lot of prizes.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that too, because The people who put on the show pick the top 3 trees in each category. These are bonsai people. The judges primarily are not bonsai people. They are business leaders, a mayor, a city council person, someone from the Department of Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hardcore bonsai crowd. And so you give them 3 trees, it'll be a decent winner, but not always the best winner. And by having lots of prizes, more people feel good about themselves for having won. More people can invite their friends and say, hey, look at the prize. And from an educational perspective, it's a lot better for helping people say, oh, what does excellence look like in this context or that context?
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, try Gafu 10, where there are like 20, 25 categories in the Shohin show.
Yeah.
Like the 90 centimeter category, the 80, the 70, the 60, the mini, the bunjin, the club, there's so many different categories.
I think it's good from an educational standpoint. Because you are really making all those distinctions, like, yeah, best root over rock in the show. But I don't know. To me, it's like when you go to a restaurant and there's like 10 pages to the menu. It's like, gosh, I'm just overwhelmed. Like, I don't know what to do here. Rather than like you go to those places where there's like just one page. And it's just like, oh, I can make a decision really quickly and easily.
Or a closer example is if they give you 19 chef's specials and you're like, how big is the chef? My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a simple person, but I do think there's something, and that's one of the reason I like the kokufu is there's not like first, second, third or whatnot. It's just, here's a badge of honor. Like this tree is like really phenomenal. It's not, the best medium tree, whatever, but like this tree is just like really special.
It's a recognition at that point, and it's great. They just take tons of points from a whole lot of judges, and if you hit a threshold, the thing gets a prize. And it's a recognition. It's not as comparative. It's just like, these trees we feel are at this certain level of recognition. And that I really like. And actually, one of my ideas before we decided on prizes for the show was, instead of having 1, 2, 3 or top in a category, I like the idea of having recognitions. And one way to do that would be have your professionals come in, and I still might do this additionally. I would love to have a professional come in, recognize 1 to 3 of their favorite trees, and give us a few sentences. What is special about this tree that it deserves recognition? It's not whether or not it's the best. There's something that caught my attention or really makes me smile. Let's hear about that. Let's learn from that.
That could be a great, like, if you had like a educational component or seminar type of component attached to this, like you could have like a, what would you call it? Like a panel discussion or something like that. And you could wheel the tree in, talk about it. Like, this is why this is special.
And docents would love that, because it's just such an easy to understand thing. And it's easier to learn when it's less political, because as soon as you give something a prize, someone will say, well, I like that one better. But if you give it a recognition, it's a really great way for people to acknowledge, it has those really nice characteristics. I may or may not care for them, but that may be an exceptional specimen in that case. Mm-hmm. So then we've got, so just to go over the different models in Japan. So kokufu is cool because, like you say, it's an undifferentiated, you get a prize, congrats. Whereas Taikon 10, they give you, or Gafu 10, a million little prizes. If I recall, Sakufu is more like, here's a best in show, and then here's best conifer, and then here's best deciduous.
Which is kind of the Western model, right?
Yeah, more so. And then one of my favorite prizes they have at Sakufu, which everybody hates apparently, is they call it like, I forget the name. It's like
the up and coming prize or something.
Yes, like it's like the most promise. Oh, this tree has a lot of promise award. And what it is it's a very patronizing pat on the back to younger bonsai professionals to say, keep up the good work, son.
Interesting.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Because I remember the year I was there.
Is it more about the tree or the professional? Is it like, this tree's like, it's cool now, but like in 5 years, like this tree's going to be really special? Or is it like you have like a ways to go? Like which one is it more?
Is it a bless your heart kind of prize, or is it? Well, speaking of, not only do I not know the answer to that, but there were a few unique things going on, and you'll appreciate this, and it'll probably Michael will love to hear this. The one time I went to Sakufu, Shinji Suzuki was running the show. He was kind of the master of ceremony. And they tried something apparently they had never done before, and it was extremely awkward. And that was they rented women to hand out the prizes.
Interesting.
It was interesting because unlike, a lot of other events, the Sakufu it's an exhibit just for the professionals. And so
Yeah.
it's a very small room. You're in the darn room of the prizes. There might be, 20, 30 chairs in the room, and it's just all professionals sitting there and a couple of bored apprentices, which is what I was posing as at the time. And then it's like, Shinji gets up there and starts talking, a couple other people talk. And then there's these two women. Which was interesting is,
And then like Vanna White comes out and
well,
hands
yeah,
out a
but
prize.
except unlike Vanna, they weren't wearing their gowns. And unlike an auto show, they weren't wearing bikinis. They were just dressed like they were going to work that day. It was kind of business casual, just professional attire. And it was these two women that were just sitting there. And so Suzuki would announce the winner and just kind of look around, and then he'd just hand the paper to the woman, and then the paper would hand it to the guy who's right there. It was the weird. Everyone's like, huh?
Or what do they say? Like 90% of experiments fail, something like that. I think we can put that in the fail category.
Yeah. All I know is I was at the right failure. Like if you're going to see a failure, that's a good way to fail, where you have unnecessary participation in the award ceremony. It was pretty funny. So I don't know if they ever did that again. Maybe they always did it, but my understanding was everyone was very confused and kind of put off by it. And I'm not sure it happened again. Just liven things up a little bit.
Interesting. At your show, are you gonna have like drones or something come and fly out the prizes, or because that's very bad idea.
See, we had drones at the National last time. I remember Oscar had a guy, I think, flying a drone around, but
inside the soccer stadium.
Yeah, pretty sure there was one of the videos had some drone footage in there. I remember hearing it.
I should bring my Mavic Mini.
I think it was that'd be great. We'll let you in there at night and do some swoopy foliage, but we'll need I've
been practicing. I can like get in under my shade cloth and fly around the benches. So
tell that to the insurance adjuster when it comes down in a crepe myrtle. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that'll be fun. So yeah, when it comes to judging, so much of it's experimental. And I always think of judging as just a way to just find out more about the people that have things writing on the judging, because what trees get in or not is always a bone of contention. What trees win prizes or not is. The coolest thing about having the participants gauge their own work or each other's work is, hey, you know who to point your finger at. You can point it right back at yourself. And it just teaches us that we all need to do a better job at educating what are the characteristics we're looking for, how we do this. And so,
well, and it's interesting because you're kind of seeing where the community is at. Maybe the community is favoring really big trunks, or maybe it's favoring conifers, or I don't know, I'm just making things up, but maybe like you get to see that community is maybe not bias, but preference, or kind of where their headspace is at the time. And then that's fascinating.
You use the exact phrase I use. I want to know, where are we now? Do we need to do better? Yes. But how do we need to do better? This is just putting our finger on the pulse of where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. You kind of even just get that by which trees show up. But you definitely get that zoom in focus when the exhibitors critique themselves and evaluate themselves. I think that's
right. And I think that's a good point, because when a professional lets their biases come through, then that's only telling us what the biases of a single person is. When the biases of a large group come together, it's really saying something about the bonsai zeitgeist. What are people interested in right now? And or what have they been producing over long periods of time leading up to the show? Because that's another big part of it.
Do you plan on, some of the coolest things I think about with shows is that we can access the information later, years down the road, and we can look back, and say like, oh, like the Artisans Cup, for example, we can either go online or get the book, and we can say, what was our headspace in 2015, and you can see that super, super clearly. And the cool thing about that show is they recorded the judges' comments. You can see all the scores and everything, and it's all out there right in public. And I love that. Do you think you'll do something similar where you'll put that kind of public information? I mean, I know if you have the exhibitors judging, then you can't really like that's 30 or whatever judges that you can't really publish
It's
all of that. But
it's a
do you
downloadable
think,
spreadsheet at that point.
yeah,
I'm not planning on doing the individual scores, but I would love to have a resource like the cup is done and have a website where you have a reference shot of every tree in the show, as well as of course, recognition for the prize winners. I think
do
that's
you,
really important.
do you think you'll do a show book? Because those are always like logistically a nightmare to produce.
Yeah. And so Eric and I were talking about this. I feel very strongly that I want photos of all the trees in the exhibit.
Hmm.
And if we can get high enough quality photos, that would give us the option of making the book. What I actually want to do is pre-sell the book just to force us to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think.
And I think it'll
From
be a very, very straightforward affair, more like what we see in Japan, but not as high a quality in terms of the printing. But just to do not a lot of talk. It just, hey, here's the
Mhm.
reference photos of the show. Here's a few
Yeah,
shots of the room and the event itself. It'll be like a yearbook for the show.
yeah, I like that because like I said, you just get to see like where our heads were at in
Yeah.
2022 when we start this for the first
Now,
time.
if we were really good, we'd have the book available at the show. Then it would be like a yearbook and we could sign each other's yearbooks. But you talk about logistical nightmares. I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's
But
possible, but not cheap.
our current plan, so we made a little schedule. And I should say we made an ambitious schedule of what that setup day looks like. But theoretically, we can do this, and it would require all the trees showing up early Friday morning and taking the photos all morning long to have the photography finished by 4 p.m. when we start judging.
I think
And
that sounds
then
doable.
yeah, it's just set up an entire show. We have to figure out how we're going to build the room. Like we haven't even figured out any of those details yet.
Is the
But
room already going to be built by Friday morning when that shows up? Is the
that's
room
the
building on Thursday or?
that's the part we have to figure out. They're going to give us tables and arrangement theoretically ahead of time, but I can almost guarantee we'll need to change it. To me, one of the bigger variables in the whole event is going to be the backdrops. And so we'll have to figure that out. And depending on the construction and storage and everything relating to backdrops, we might have to come in a day earlier to do that or
Mhm.
rethink how many volunteers we're going to need on Friday.
Yeah. Circling back to the judging, I just thought of
Yeah.
one more thing. Um, you said this show is going to have creative displays or
Yes.
non-conventional or unconventional displays. Will those be judged by the same standard in rubric, or will they be separate, or are those not judged at all? How will that work?
So that's an excellent question. There will be so this is a whole thing. There are two categories that we're looking at hosting for judging. The exhibit itself will be giving out 4 prizes: best in show, best conifer, best deciduous, best broadleaf evergreen. Those are the 4 sanctioned categories. And we love having those categories because we want to incentivize excellence in those different categories. I don't want to
Yeah.
just see one or the other. And we've seen this in BIB as well. Some people actually choose kind of what to show. This happens at GSBF also. Oh, you don't often see a lot of entries in that category. Let's aim for that. And so I'd love to see some good competition between olives, oaks, and azaleas in the broadleaf category. I think that'd be
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, that'd be super cool.
that has nothing to do with displays. And so for the judging, the focus is going to be it might be 80% tree, a little bit on the display. Then, so we actually have instructions to the judges saying things like, if you see a so-so tree in a great display or a great tree in a so-so display, give more credit to the great tree in the so-so display. So we're going to have you count the whole thing, but it's by far more important to have the best tree recognized. And that's all
So,
just one category of categories.
which is kind of similar to kokufu. It's just like here's
Yep.
the tree. It's on a stand. Maybe there's there's an accent, but it's just more about the tree than like
It's
the
just
display. Unlike
right.
Taikon 10, which is where the display might fall
Yeah,
more into
it's
that.
just so conventionalized at Kokufu. We're not going to say your Perosia looks better than your Woodsia, than your Ardisia, because those are
Sure.
the accent plants. It's going to be that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
So that gives us a whole other category. And what we're looking at is opening it up to any number of sponsored prizes. And so if you, Rakuyo N, wants to say, we are going to sponsor the best deciduous tree in a modern display, or the best Shohin deciduous tree, or just name whatever category you want, best deciduous tree in a blue pot. Hopefully we can do better than that.
Yeah.
You can say, I'm going to give a prize at this level, and you actually get to pick that prize and grant that award. And so I'm expecting people to want to recognize best alternative display as a really obvious category for that.
That's great. That's you have your kind of standard simple that you're going to do as the show organizers, and then you let the community sponsor what the community might want to see more of.
Yeah. And so what we'll do is we'll say we want to make sure that there's a certain base level of prize that accompanies these things, just to make sure we don't have 900 prizes. But on the other hand, we want to make sure that people get the opportunity to recognize the things that they want to see, because we're trying to figure out how do we incentivize the kind of submissions we want to end up with. And this could be a really neat way to do that.
Yeah. I love it.
It might take a couple times. Like I keep figuring you need to do a first show so the second show can be good. And so we need to start learning what are the dumb things we're doing now so we can refine that in the next time. And likewise with the submitters, the exhibitors are going to think, oh, there wasn't as much competition in that category last time. Maybe my crepe myrtle does have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's like building my house. It's like, oh, I should have done that differently, but it's already there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so best 3-point display, that would be a good traditional model category. Best alternative display would be, best Cirque du Soleil award. It can be something hanging or swinging back and forth. Best dynamic display. Like you could come up with all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
Natives recognition, specific species, accent plants. Pots.
Native to the U.S. border?
You get to pick a political boundary.
Okay.
That's what I always think is so silly about the native prizes is so many of us love political boundaries, but I live in a place where like we can grow oaks and redwoods and pretty much nothing else is native. And so it just feels so silly. Oh yeah, I've got this native tree that lives at 8,000 feet. What percentage of American bonsai artists live at 8,000 feet? It's not native to any of us, but we share a political boundary.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. In like your area, Bay Area, it's like, is a Rocky Mountain juniper any more native than a Shimpaku juniper just because it's...
Right. So do I really have more affinity for a tree that flies an American flag that lives at 8,000 feet or a tree that lives in my exact climate in another country because it's a short tree? And so open questions. Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's another one. But
I'm glad you're making attempts to critically think about how we can change the judging process. I think it's going to be really an exciting show because of that.
So I'm hoping that in addition to conversations just like this, that we produce some resources between now and the show that can help people learn about the judging process. And so I want to write some blog posts on judging. I haven't done that in years. And so I think we should do some podcasts on it. I like that idea of going through a book. What else do you think would be a good way to support the community? Because really, we're creating a new generation of evaluators in this case.
Yeah. No, I think everything you just said makes a lot of sense.
I've taught judging. It's one of the favorite programs I do for clubs, actually, when I visit clubs, is teach evaluation. And I always think of it as evaluation because what I'll do is we give everyone forms and we go through practice trees together and we follow the model, just like I did with BIB, but sometimes we change the categories. And it's so great to give people the tool of thinking of a tree atomistically because it just helps them think of, oh, how might I improve my own trees? Oh boy, my branches do have a way to go. They're more of a 2. I'd rather they're closer to a 4.
Will you do that at the exhibition? Will you have, if let's say Michael Hagdorn's coming down to see the show, will he walk through and give like a guided tour, kind of like what happens at the national show?
Excellent question. And so what Eric and I have planned is that what we want to do is the absolute bare minimum to count as a show. And we are open to every other fun bell and whistle we can add on if we can find a way to manage it. And so if we can find a way to coordinate that without additional overhead, then yes, I would love to do that. And so if Michael, as you mentioned, wants to volunteer and I have someone in charge of volunteering, then we'll say, great, you are the 2:00 docent and we will promote it as much as possible. But we just need someone to coordinate all that stuff.
Because always from my experience, that's where you learn the most, especially when, before I switched to doing bonsai professionally, like when you get to see that judging process and that evaluation, that's where you really learn a lot, I think.
Especially to show, because it's the only time when you can really judge displays in the wild, because everything else is just play. And I was actually I'm planning to participate in a show this fall in the Bay Area. And they were asking what I think about doing a workshop versus a critique. And I said, well, I'm local, so I can do workshops all the time, but it is a little special to do something around a critique. And it's a fun learning example. And there's so many ways to do critiques. That alone actually is a good related topic. I've seen so many critiques where professionals walk around, or even club members walk around pointing out flaws in trees. And I think even beginners can do that. What I find really challenging is walk from tree to tree, just pointing out how this tree can be better next time.
Yeah, that's how I always run my critiques is we talk about taking this plant, not just saying this is wrong, but how do we make this plant better? I mean, it's really obvious.
How do we get there from here?
Yeah, it's really obvious, but a lot of critiques I've seen don't always do that.
That's how I evaluate critiques, actually. It's fun to go around and, well, that's terrible and that's bad. It's like, good. It's like, oh yeah. But
that doesn't mean anything. It's like, okay, here's a tree. Maybe it has some flaws, but okay, could we correct those flaws, or could we improve the tree in other aspects to draw away our visual attention?
And I'm selfish. I want to see better trees going forward. So I want to do everything in my power to see more better trees down the road. And so when I walk up to a tree, it's like, wow, this tree has a great trunk. It's got wonderful movement. It's got a great line. And when I think of what I'd want to see in this tree the next show, I look at the branches. What can we do with the branches here? This happens to be a cryptomeria, and this species shows its age in branch development. And unfortunately, unlike a juniper, there is no way to cheat on a needle juniper or cryptomeria. You need to build that density one cut at a time, one painful July day after another. And that's where good cryptomeria come from.
Yep.
But that might be in our foliage category if we're back to our judging rubric.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, it's been super fun to talk judging and critique and tree evaluation with you this morning. I'm really looking forward to the exhibition. When is the Pacific Bonsai Expo again?
It will be November of 2022.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much for the chat.
Yeah. Cheers.
The music on today's podcast was brought to you by the fine folks at Blue Dot Sessions. Check them out at www.sessions.blue.